it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Treknalysis. Here on Treknalysis, I highlight different Star Trek episodes, but admittedly, I've reviewed my share of meh episodes and even bad ones. Heck, I just talked about Spock's brain last week.
Brain and brain! What is brain?
So, let's talk about a good episode for once. Sins of the Father. This episode nearly made it into my top 10 Star Trek The Next Generation episodes list a few years back, and even though it didn't make it, it's still an excellent Worf episode. Heck, I briefly mentioned it in 2 previous Treknalysis videos. Yes, I'm going out of order, but if George Lucas can do it, so can I.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Amid all the barrel falling, constant denying, and getting his ass handed to him, Worf has had some shining episodes that showcase his honor and overall badassery, and this is one of them. Today, it's Klingon intrigue with a side of family drama and burned replicated bird meat this week on Treknalysis.
You do understand that we cook most of our foods.
But before I go further, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk a lot about Star Trek, video games, and whatever else I feel like talking about. And if you'd like to help support the channel, consider becoming a member. Be great to have you aboard. Well, thanks to Riker for his little Klingon exchange program, the Enterprise is hosting a Klingon officer, probably to promote tolerance and understanding. You know, Klingon values.
We don't embrace other cultures, we conquer them.
The Klingon coming aboard is Kurn, and he's being afforded the rights and responsibilities due to a first officer. So I guess he's taking over Riker's job while Riker gets some extra holodeck time.
You need me, I'll be in holodeck 4.
Weirdly enough, though, Kurn specifically requested the Enterprise, which, coincidentally, is the ship of Starfleet's only Klingon officer, Worf. Tony Todd, ladies and gentlemen! For real though, Tony Todd is one of the greatest Star Trek guest stars. I don't think he's ever had a bad Trek performance. Kurn's on the bridge, and he's practically taking over. No nonsense. We're following Starfleet protocol as strictly as possible. This ship needs discipline.
With your permission, of course, Captain.
Oh, by all means, Commander.
Even Picard's a subordinate on his own ship. Heck, Kurn would probably even give Jellicoe a run for his money. Yeah, you tell Kurn to put on a proper uniform, Jelly.
Do you wish to speak, Acting Ensign Wesley Crusher?
Not even the boy wonder escapes Kurn. And there was much rejoicing to be had. Heck, there's none of that make it so or engage stuff on Kurn's bridge. You know what his catchphrase is?
Execute.
That's just a reminder of how he deals with insubordination. Picard may still be the captain, but we all know who's running the ship. In 10 Forward, Riker spies Wesley and asserts his dominance. And he already knows what's bothering Wes, our glorious new first officer, Commander Kurn.
He just doesn't seem to like me.
Ah, he's a man of taste, I see. But okay, now that I got my Wesley jab in, sorry to all the Wesley fans out there, this isn't an unrealistic reaction from Wesley. I mean, think about it. He's basically been told by almost everyone on the ship, probably through the fault of the writers, how gifted and wonderful he is for maybe a little over 2 years now. He's probably not used to criticism, or maybe even got complacent in his excellence. So when someone comes along who's a hell of a lot stricter than he's used to and giving out criticism, it's enough to make him down a bunch of root beers in 10 Forward. And Wes isn't the only one. Coming in to join in the airing of grievances is Geordi. Apparently, Kurn paid Geordi a surprise visit to engineering during a maintenance cycle, and basically wants him to redo everything. Riker points out that Kurn's command style is, well, very Klingon. But Geordi points out that this isn't a Klingon ship, and Kurn needs to loosen up. Now, on the one hand, I get it. Even though Kurn is acting first officer, he's still a guest on the Enterprise and needs to adjust to working with a Starfleet crew. Maybe meet them halfway. But on the other hand, dude, he's following Starfleet protocol. Shouldn't you already have been doing this stuff? I mean, let's face it, complaining about it doesn't look good if that's what you should have been doing in the first place. And Kurn's been leaning into a lot of people on board. Except, weirdly enough, Worf. In fact, Kurn is too nice to Worf. He's polite to him, complimenting him, smiling at him. And this really pisses off Worf. Meanwhile, when did I eat corn? Kurn enters the turbo lift and Riker offers to help him work with the crew. Kurn refuses. Riker reminds him that this isn't a Klingon ship and no, it isn't.
If it were a Klingon ship, I would have killed you for offering your suggestion.
A few moments later.
Just a short while ago, I had to stop myself from killing Commander Riker.
Jeez, what did Riker do to you, Deanna? Will, sleep with one eye open. Dinner is served and Kurn is treated to an entire spread of Earth delicacies.
I shall try some of your burned, replicated bird meat.
In fact, Kurn doesn't like anything that's put in front of him. Caviar? Not a fan. The turkey? Spits it out. Which begs the question, if Klingon food is largely uncooked and is on the flavorful side, why not put out an entire sushi platter, load it up with wasabi, and watch Kurn demolish it? Or what about steak tartare? Wouldn't he like that? Or if blandness is his concern? I'm just saying, Sisko would have him covered.
You don't like beans, Doctor?
But Worf has had enough. Kurn has been polite to him, and he's not going to stand for it.
I did not know that being polite to a Starfleet officer would bring dishonor to him.
Kurn points out that the Enterprise was built for comfort. Well, what else is new? It's basically a cruise ship complete with a bar. And even though Worf is doing a good job and is a credit to his ship, Kurn simply didn't want to hurt him. His environment probably made him soft. And Worf takes that personally.
The response I would expect from my older brother.
What? Yep, this is Star Trek, where it's not unusual for a character to randomly have a brother they never mentioned before.
You mean he's your brother?
I do not have a brother. I have a half-brother.
I gotta sit down.
About 20 years ago, Worf and his parents went to the Khitomer outpost, and because they weren't going to be there long, they sent Kurn to stay with a family friend, Lorg. Unfortunately, the Romulans staged an attack on Khitomer, which resulted in the deaths of Worf and Kurn's parents. Worf was rescued and adopted by Sergei Rushenko and his wife Helena, and was told that he had no relatives, mainly because Starfleet assumed Kurn was killed at Khitomer, which he was not. Instead, Kurn was raised by Lorg as his son, but found out he was adopted when he reached the age of ascension. Worf's and Kurn's father Moog was recently accused by Duras, the son of Moog's greatest rival, of betraying the Klingon Empire by sending the Romulans security codes that allowed them to destroy the outpost at Khitomer. So Kurn requested the Enterprise in the Klingon exchange program to see what kind of man his brother was, and so he could challenge the ruling and preserve the family honor. However, should he fail in that challenge, Worf will be executed for his father's crimes and their family disgraced for 7 generations. Worf, being the honor-bound Klingon that he is, wants to defend his family's honor and asks Picard to grant him leave.
It seems only appropriate that your captain should be at your side while you make your challenge.
Screw the exchange program, guys! We're helping the Worf brothers. Worf selects Kurn as his Chadich, and there are some great Klingon lines in this episode.
Jalaznish. Gijket Jagmija.
Lajnesh. Jijket Jagmijaj.
This Habidar should have been fed to the dogs!
Worf also tells Kurn to keep his lineage a secret because if anyone finds out that he's also Moog's son, his life could be on the line as well. Kurn insists that he reveals that he's also a son of Moog, but he's also Worf's Chadich, so
You do not insist. You obey.
the Enterprise arrives at Kronos and the hearing with the Klingon High Council begins.
The rulings are final. This is her courtroom. This is Judge Judy.
I believe this is the first time we see Klingon legal proceedings in Trek, even beating out Star Trek VI, which came out a year after this episode. What's interesting is that the Klingon legal system is very procedural with a rigid way of doing things, but at the same time, it still has that fighting warrior spirit. There are specific words that have to be spoken, but there's also a chance you walk away with a broken nose. Also shouting, lots of shouting.
Not forsaken my heritage.
I am here at my own request, opposing this challenge. You are a traitor.
During a recess, Chancellor Kimpak speaks with Worf privately. He wants him to drop the challenge altogether and go back to the Federation and forget the whole thing ever happened. In fact, why is he even bringing the challenge up? His life wouldn't be affected in the Federation. Just go back and forget this whole thing ever happened.
We must let the past be and protect what we have.
Oh, yeah. Totally not suspicious. Worf presses it, though. In fact, why shouldn't he protect his family's honor? He's a Klingon.
I will not be questioned by you.
Yep. Definitely no underhanded dealings going on here. Meanwhile, Kurn's getting mugged. The mugging is by Duras's assassins, and Kurn winds up in sickbay. The problem now is that Duras knows that Kurn is Worf's brother, and he'll also be executed if Worf fails. Wait, is Beverly actually showing concern for Worf without massively guilt-tripping him? When does this episode happen in this season? This was after the Romulan blood donation incident? There may be hope for you yet, Bev.
It's not too late to change your mind.
Meanwhile, Picard's been having Data look into some records on the attack at Khitomer, and Data turned up some rather interesting information. The Klingons recently captured a Romulan with some logs about Khitomer that seem to implicate Moog. Only it's clear that they've been tampered with. So, it's looking like the Klingon High Council isn't acting very Klingon, and they never wanted Worf to bring this challenge.
You're getting close to something, Lieutenant.
Worf, however, has to select a new Chadich, since Kurn is currently recovering from a Klingon mugging. Worf selects Picard, and though he's reluctant to accept it since there are younger, stronger men on board, like Riker for example, he knows all the Klingon words to become Worf's new Chadich. I like the Worf-Picard dynamic in this episode. It's very clear that these two have a mutual respect for each other. Worf was initially going to go alone with Kurn to answer the challenge to his father's honor, but rather than simply granting him leave, Picard goes along with him for support. Heck, after his brother, Worf's next choice for Chadich, the one between him and death, is Picard. There's a deep connection between those two, something that doesn't quite carry over to DS9 with Sisko. It's a unique next-gen relationship between commanding officer and chief of security. But of course, not everyone's thrilled with Worf's new Chadich.
Then you must be ready to fight. You may test that assumption at your convenience.
Meanwhile, Beverly found another survivor of Khitomer, Worf's nurse Kahlest, who just so happens to live in the sketchy side of town. So Picard insists on going alone, dressed as a Jedi, to find her.
Greetings, Exalted One.
I am dead.
Kahlest admits she once served a proud family, but her life ended on Khitomer. She also tells Picard that Moog was loyal to the Empire, but he suspected a traitor was helping the Romulans, and that was the main reason he went to Khitomer. Except, why would you bring your family along, Moog? Little Worf and Kurn could have at least had their mother. Kahlest doesn't know who Moog suspected, and without her cooperation, Worf will die for his father's supposed crimes. So Picard leaves, only to get mugged outside. Klingon muggings are no joke. Kronos, ladies and gentlemen, where even the little old ladies are badasses. Finally, Kahlest agrees to help Picard since she once caught Kimpek's eye. Except he was apparently too fat. And just before Kimpek is about to lay down judgment on Worf, Picard bursts in with Kahlest like he's in a soap opera, and this is a new plot twist.
You are still fat.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Kimpek finally admits, privately mind you, that all of this, framing Moog, nearly executing Worf and Kurn, and at least 2 muggings, was to cover up Duras's father's dishonor. The Council knew all along that it was Duras's father, but his family was too powerful, and if he were punished, it would start a civil war. Since Worf is living in the Federation and in Starfleet and probably wouldn't answer the challenge, and since they didn't know Moog had another son who could bring this to Worf's attention, the Council decided to let Moog take the fall. And despite Worf's challenge being successful, the verdict had already been decided and he won't be allowed to present this evidence. So he has to be executed anyways. So much for Klingon honor.
This Habidar should have been fed to the dogs!
But Picard is involved, so he makes an impassioned plea for Worf's life and appeals to their Klingon sense of honor. Worf can't be expected to accept punishment for a lie, and they're certainly not going to execute one of Picard's officers and his brother on a lie.
I will die for the Empire.
Dude, what the hell? Worf tries to, at the very least, get Duras to spare Kurn's life, which he refuses. So Worf makes him an offer he can't refuse. He'll accept discommendation, which is basically admitting his guilt while being shunned by all Klingons in order to prevent civil war and preserve the Empire.
Your heart is Klingon.
Which is more than what we can say about the rest of you! The hope is that one day, Worf and Kurn will be able to clear Moog's name and restore their family honor while the Empire remains intact today. But before the discommendation, Worf leaves dishonored among Klingons, but is ultimately the most honorable Klingon in a world of dishonor. And that was Sins of the Father, a great character episode for Worf that introduces beloved recurring character Kurn and does some Klingon world building. Worf was always an honorable character, and this episode puts his honor to the test in the face of death. In spite of the threat of being executed, Worf's determined to preserve his honor, and it speaks to a strength of character in him. Even though, sure, a lot of us still make jokes about him. The episode also highlights the corruption of the Klingon Empire, a theme that carries over to DS9. Their empire is built around honor, but they do some really underhanded things in order to preserve their society that compromises their honor.
And how many times have you had to cover up the crimes of Klingon leaders because you were told that it was for the good of the Empire?
I think Worf made the right call to preserve the Empire since Duras was still powerful enough to fracture it. But I'm not sure why he didn't expose him after the episode reunion after Duras meets his end, even if the entire council was in on it. I mean, Duras did frame Moog for his father's crimes and poison Kimpak in an attempt to seize power. Sins of the Father was a great start to Worf's arc about losing and regaining his family honor, but never losing his personal honor. So what do you think? How do you like Sins of the Father? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How did it change your perception of the Klingon Empire from what was established previously? Did Worf do the right thing to preserve the Empire by accepting discommendation? Or should he have exposed Duras from the start? And what are some of your favorite Worf episodes, whether they be from Next Gen or DS9? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Treknalysis. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time,
I shall try some of your burned, replicated bird meat.